Adventure in Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
This is the Pipeman here on the Adventures of Pipeman W4CY Radio, where weekly we have the Positively Pipeman segment, and we feature in that segment powerful business strategies from Michael Barbarita. So let's welcome Michael to the show once again. How are you,
How are
Michael?
you, Dean? Great to see you again.
Doing great.
Hey,
well,
I want to apologize. Last week I didn't wish you a Merry Christmas.
Oh yeah, well I'm Jewish, so a couple weeks ago you missed wishing me a happy Hanukkah.
They see that? There you go. That's what I missed. What I missed.
There you go.
But I'm going to wish you a happy New Year coming up. So I can't believe the year is over. It's just hard to believe how
they go quicker every single year. Like it
sure
just amazes me. Wasn't it just January?
Yeah, I know.
I'm confused.
It's really amazing. But yes, so today I'm going to talk about legal structure and business structure, because when you start a business, selecting your legal structure is, it's an important decision, because the structure you choose will have a significant impact on the business operation itself, the management of your business, as well as taxes and personal liability as the business owner. And I'm not a lawyer, as you all know, and I don't pretend to be one here on the radio, but I do want to talk about legal structures as to my understanding of them and the best way to utilize them.
It is important, and most people do not understand them. There are a variety of choices, and a lot of people make the wrong choice.
Right, and so there's three, as I see it, there's three basic entities. There's your sole proprietorship, there's a corporation, and a partnership. So let's focus just on those three. And of course, there's different forms of a corporation, there's different forms of a partnership. But let's talk about them one at a time. So a sole proprietorship is actually a business formation that does not protect you from personal liability. However, the use of a sole proprietorship comes in most effectively is when you're just starting a business and you're seeing if it's going to work out. Because if you're just starting a business, you're under the lawsuit radar for the most part. You're just starting out. And so instead of incurring all the costs of setting up a corporation or a partnership, you just want to test out your business to see if it's going to be something you're going to stay with, see if it's something that's going to work for you and start to make money. And if it is, then you have to get out of that structure, because that structure affords absolutely no personal liability protection.
Yes.
It's if somebody slips
and
and
higher
falls,
taxes,
right, and higher taxes as well, because it's all on your personal tax return. There is no flexibility as there is with other structures. So you're going to pay self-employment tax. You're going to pay the regular income tax. In addition to that, self-employment tax is roughly 15.4%. You're paying, where as an employee, you only pay half of that. The other half is paid by the employer. And since you're a sole proprietorship, you're considered an employer, and that's why you're paying 15.4.
Yeah.
But the only way I recommend sole proprietorships is if you're just starting the business, you don't know if it's going to go north or south, and you're under the legal radar. You're not taking a lot of risk. You're not, like, for example, you're not giving, what do they call when you, they put, they imprint the skin. What is that called? Tattoo. You're not a tattoo parlor. All right. Because if you are, that would probably present itself with all kinds of liability, even for your first customer. So, but for the most part, you're under the radar. Then a sole proprietorship is probably your best choice until you start saying, you know what, I'm committed to this business now. I can see myself making money in it. It's a profitable venture. Now it's time to start to look into probably a corporation.
And I'm also a big believer, and you might agree, might not, that it should never be a sole prop. There are other ways to do it as a sole prop without the liability. and you can always switch later. For instance, if you do a single member LLC,
Right.
that's
That's right.
basically a sole prop, but without the liability.
Right. No, that's right. It is exactly that. The single member LLC is a sole proprietorship without the liability, but you are paying that, you are paying that self-employment tax. So it's not in full. So it's not really that kind of as favorable a structure, but it is a liability protection. So if I was a tattoo parlor, that's exactly how I would set it up. But once again, I'm paying a $500 annual fee. I'm paying for an extra schedule on my tax return. Well, actually, you're not. No, you're going to be paying. You're going to have the extra schedule anyway. But you're going to be paying the membership fee, and you're going to have to hire a lawyer to develop that. And so that if you're not really sure if your business is going to fly, that's when I do recommend a sole proprietorship. But you're right. You can eliminate the personal liability to be a single member LLC.
I'm just a believer that I'll spend the money to begin with to protect my liability, because it only takes one lawsuit, and
that's right.
It was worth paying whatever you had to pay to avoid that.
That's right. And that's very true. And so a corporation, though, is that next step that gives you the liability protection, plus it can give you some tax, what I'm going to call tax flexibility. So first of all, there are two types of corporations, and then there's the LLC, and I'll explain. You have an S corporation, a subchapter S corporation, which, in my opinion, is the most favorable structure from a tax standpoint, and gives you the liability protection at the same time.
Especially if you're a small business.
Right. That's right. And a C corporation is really, I believe, to be unfavorable, because there's double taxation. It's very difficult to sell a C corporation, and it's only utilized in rare cases for a small business. And I can tell you, I made the mistake back in 1984 to be a C corporation, and I had to do a lot of work to get out of it, and turn myself into an S. Which ended up being favorable, but it's a lot of work, time, energy, efforts, expense. You might as well be an S corporation right off the bat. Now, an S corporation is called a pass-through entity, which means the profit gets passed through to the business owner's personal tax return and gets taxed at the business owner's individual tax rate. So but the beautiful thing about that is that profit of the S corporation is not subject to unemployment tax, or self-employment tax, I should say. It's not subject to self-employment tax, and as a result, you can actually, by managing it properly, it's going to be managed. There's flexibility. The flexibility has to be managed, and by managing it properly, you can reduce your tax liability with that sub S corporation. Now, you have to remember that an S corp, you have to have a reasonable salary. You have to make a reasonable salary and be on the payroll. Otherwise, you're abusing the S corporation's advantages, and that's where
you pierce the corporate veil, and you are personally liable if you don't do that.
That's right. Because what happens is you have to make sure that when you're a corporation, whether it's an S corp or a C corp, that you have to be fiduciarily responsible in every way, so that the courts can clearly see that there's two entities, the corporation and the person. If you don't separate that, if you commingle funds and do all that nonsense, then a good lawyer is going to break the corporate veil.
Yeah.
And you're going to get into trouble.
Totally.
So you've got to be really diligent about the management of a sub S corporation, or in a C corporation, by the way.
And a perfect example of that is, which people wouldn't even think of, if you pay one of your vendors with personal credit card, you have just pierced the corporate veil. That's right. Yeah, an opposing attorney will have a field day with that one. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're being the same person. The key is to make the corporation separate from the individual.
Yes.
And so then there's this thing called an LLC, which is a limited liability company, which we've already touched upon. You could be a single member LLC. You could be a partnership and be an LLC, but you're going to be taxed as a partnership. See, the LLC, you can be taxed in a variety of ways. You could be an S corporation and an LLC, which I don't recommend, and that way you're taxed as an S corporation. You can be an LLC and a sole proprietor, and that is when that's protecting you from the personal liability side, but you're being taxed on your individual tax return. And then you could be a partnership taxed as an LLC taxed as a partnership. So an LLC gives you the flexibility of being taxed in different ways.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the advantage of an LLC. My favorite structure is still an S corporation because it gives you the most flexibility from a tax standpoint. And I call it flexibility. It doesn't eliminate tax, but it gives you flexibility because of the profit from the S corporation is not subject to self-employment tax. So given all these structures, my favorite, and of course that's what my company is, is an S corporation. But like Dean said, you have to be very diligent when you're a corporation. Otherwise, if you're commingling funds, you're using personal credit cards, all of that nonsense, that you're going to look like the corporation and the individual is one of the same, and you're going to lose every lawsuit with a reasonable, competent attorney on the other side.
And a lot of people do, okay, because they don't understand this. They set up an S corp, and then they pay all their personal bills through the S corp, so they can quote unquote, bring down their income. Yeah. But again, your deductions are not your personal bills. That in proper taxation, that is deemed income. So if you have your personal home rent, let's say, without using home deductions, which I never recommend anyway, but you have just pierced the corporate veil, and it looks like you're just trying to take advantage using the S corp to avoid paying taxes by getting deductions you would never get before. Right. Okay. Yeah. And so, this was something I was taught very early, like 18 years old, like no matter what, do not commingle. And what commingling means. Some people think commingling just means commingling the money. That's why I brought up the concept of the personal credit cards, because it's not just commingling the money. It's actually using the corporation to fund your personal lifestyle. And that's a big no-no.
Big no-no. You're going to get nailed. And all the value that the corporation has to protect you is gone. The other misnomer people have is that when they sign a personal guarantee for a loan, even if it's a sub-S corporation, they're still personally liable on that. The corporation protects you from personal liability from the outside, but if you're signing away your right and becoming personal liable for a bank loan or a lease or even a vendor that makes you sign personal guarantees, which I'd be very cautious about, by the way, that you are personally liable regardless of what kind of structure you have when you sign a personal guarantee.
I was taught that too at a young age. Don't ever sign a personal guarantee. What's the point of getting a business loan if you're going to sign a personal guarantee?
Theoretically, there's no point. The problem is that banks are just being real difficult these days and requiring it on everything. And when business owners need a line of credit,
that's the unfortunate part, because they are requiring it more now than ever. Because it was never a case back in the day, and now, like, it defeats the whole purpose of having a corporation if you're going to sign a personal guarantee.
It does, but at least it limits, the outside lawsuits. But
that's true.
But on the other hand, you're right. People sign away. I have clients that have personal guarantees with vendors that are 30 years old, and I'm telling them to go back and get that personal guarantee and rip it up because, if something happens, imagine being loyal to a vendor for 30 years and then they go after you personally because they got this personal guarantee and you happen to hit a rough patch. I mean, it's just scary. So, your never signed personal guarantees really now applies with exclamation points to suppliers who try to get them especially when you're just starting out.
Well, like you're talking about the banks and credit and stuff. To me, it's like, if you're going to sign a personal guarantee, you just might as well get the credit personally, because here's the problem people don't think about. If you're getting a business loan based on your Dun & Bradstreet score and you do a personal guarantee, you have all the negatives and none of the positives.
Yeah, I know.
Because you're building your business credit, but you're not building your personal credit, but your personal credit could get affected negatively. So if you're going to have where you might get affected negatively on your personal credit, you might as well get the positive part of it and have it being a personal credit. So you're getting that on your credit report. That's my opinion, at least. Like,
right.
You don't want to do personal credit for your business, but in the same token, if you're personally guaranteeing, that means you basically are without any of the benefits, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's very true. It's a dangerous part of being a business owner, these personal guarantees. That's for darn sure.
Yeah.
You should make sure you have homesteads on your house, and all, and maybe put your house in a trust. All those types of things can protect, and you should go to an estate attorney or an attorney to protect yourself, because if you run into trouble and then you start protecting yourself, these are fraudulent conveyances that occur, and you're just going to get into more trouble. So be proactive and trying to protect your assets.
No doubt. So
one of the things I'd like to offer your audience, Dean, is a workbook called Legal Structures. And it's an actual implementation workbook to help the business owner understand what the best legal structure is and how to go about it and why. And so in order to get that, you go to nextstepcfo.net, you hit the contact button, you fill out the contact form, and in the message box, simply put Legal Structure Workbook, and I'll send that to you free of charge.
Nice. I love it. And yes, this is a very important subject. I'm glad we covered it, because I can't tell you how many people I know go into business and they have no idea about any of this stuff. I don't even know what makes them think they should go into business without doing some research and knowing your legalities and your liabilities and all that. Right. But they do. They do. And they think certain things, but that's not reality, because it's like everything nowadays. They talk to their buddy, or like when somebody posts something on social media and I know it's not true, I'm like, is that peer reviewed? And the answer I get is, oh yeah, all my friends agree with me.
Right.
No. And all your friends shouldn't agree with you in your business decisions either, because they're not going to pay the price. You will. But thankfully, because of people like you, Michael, people can seek out your expertise, your assistance, so that they don't have to pay the price. And
the decision is ultimately theirs. The decision is ultimately theirs on what structure to.
Yeah.
And how much risk they want to, and how much risk they want to take.
Yeah.
And how much risk they want to take. Yeah.
Exactly. 100%. Well, again, this is great information, especially heading into a new year, because taxes are coming. Okay. And you better be in the right legal structure for that. And so reach out to Michael, get the free workbook, and, see what Michael can do for you. And once again, Michael, thanks for being on the Adventures of Pipeman. And
can I wish you a Happy New Year, Dean?
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, I was just going to say, and I'll see you next year.
All right. Excellent. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.